The air was thick with anticipation and fear as the Chrozens, the alien invaders, made their final approach. Their massive, insectoid ships loomed over every major city on the planet, their hulls pulsing with an eerie green light. As the invasion fleet descended, a seemingly endless wave of ground troops followed suit, pouring out of the bellies of the ships and flooding the streets below. The once familiar world was transformed into a war zone, with buildings reduced to rubble and screams of terror filling the air. It was in these desperate times that a group of unlikely heroes found themselves thrown together. There was Marcus, a former Marine with a haunted past, Sarah, a brilliant scientist who had lost everything, and Jack, a teenage hacker with a chip on his shoulder. They were joined by others from all walks of life, an elderly war veteran, a struggling single mother, and even a former criminal. Against all odds, they decided to band together and form the Resistance. Their mission, to save Earth from the clutches of the ruthless Chrozens. As the battle for humanity raged on, the members of the Resistance found themselves navigating treacherous terrain, facing their own personal demons, and learning to trust one another if they stood any chance against the superior technology and sheer numbers of the enemy. They fought in abandoned cities, ruined suburbs, and overgrown forests, always staying one step ahead of the Chrozens' relentless advance. Their only hope was to find a weapon, a relic from the past, that could potentially turn the tide of the war. The search led them to an ancient temple, hidden deep within the heart of a dense jungle. As they approached, they could feel a strange energy emanating from within. The air grew colder, and the sky darkened. Inside, they found a room filled with ancient artifacts and a large pedestal at its center. Upon it rested a glowing orb, pulsating with power. It was the key to ending the Chrozens' reign of terror, but they knew it wouldn't be easy. The room was trapped, and the Chrozens were closing in fast. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes burning with determination.
"All right, everyone. We've come this far. Let's do this."
With a deep breath, he activated the mechanism that would disarm the traps. The air grew still, and then, with a deafening boom, the ceiling collapsed, revealing a hole leading to freedom. The Resistance raced through the tunnel, barely escaping the crumbling ruins behind them. As they emerged from the other side, they found themselves in a hidden underground bunker, built long ago by humanity in anticipation of just such a threat. The bunker was well stocked with weapons, supplies, and even a prototype starship. It was here that they would make their final stand. The Chrozens were drawing near, their numbers seeming to grow with each passing moment. The battle for Earth was about to reach its climax. Sarah worked tirelessly to activate the ancient technology within the bunker, while Jack and the others prepared for the onslaught of Chrozens. Marcus, still haunted by his past, found himself questioning his leadership and his ability to protect those he cared about. But as the enemy closed in, he knew there was no choice but to face his demons and lead the Resistance to victory or die trying. The air was thick with anticipation and fear as the Chrozens launched their final assault on the bunker. The battle was brutal, with both sides giving everything they had. Throughout it all, the glowing orb Marcus had recovered continued to pulse with power, drawing the attention of the Chrozens' commanders. They knew what the orb could do, and they were determined to destroy it at all costs. Marcus led the charge, his marine training allowing him to navigate the chaos with precision. Sarah worked tirelessly to maintain the bunker's defenses, while Jack hacked into the Chrozens' communications network, disrupting their strategies. The elderly war veteran and struggling single mother fought side by side, their bond forged in the crucible of war. Even the former criminal found purpose in protecting those around him. As the battle raged on, Marcus found himself drawn to the orb, unable to resist its call. He knew what he had to do. Gathering his courage, he charged toward the Chrozens' command center, the orb held tightly in his hand. The Chrozens' elite forces stood in his way, but he fought through them, driven by a sense of purpose he had never known before. Finally, he reached the command center, the orb's energy surging through his body. With a single, powerful thrust, he drove the orb into the heart of the Chrozens' control system. The blast was immense, engulfing the command center in a wave of energy. When the dust cleared, the Chrozens' ships floated lifelessly in space, their advance halted. The ground troops, deprived of their commander's guidance, began to scatter and retreat. The battle was over. Earth had been saved. As the surviving members of the Resistance embraced one another in relief and triumph, they knew that they had changed irrevocably. They had gone from being a disparate group of strangers to a unified force, bonded by their shared experience and their determination to protect what they held dear. And in the aftermath of the battle, they found that they could not imagine going back to the lives they had left behind. For they had become heroes, and heroes never truly belong in the world they once knew. Marcus, the once troubled youth who had been haunted by his past, found himself transformed by the events that had transpired. He no longer saw himself as a failure or a burden, but rather as a leader who had guided his people to victory. His relationship with Sarah had deepened, and they knew that they would always have a connection that went beyond the battlefield. As for Jack, the former criminal, he had found redemption in the fight against the Chrozens, and vowed to use his skills for the greater good from now on. The elderly war veteran and the struggling single mother, who had forged an unlikely bond during the course of the war, continued to support each other as they adjusted to their new lives. The veteran, once thought to be past his prime, had proven that age was just a number, and that the heart of a warrior could never be truly extinguished. As for Sarah, she continued to work tirelessly to preserve the technology that had helped save Earth, determined to ensure that such a terrible threat would never arise again. The world was still in ruins, and the road to recovery would be long and arduous. But for the members of the Resistance, there was no place like home. They had faced down an insurmountable foe and emerged victorious, and they knew that together, they could rebuild and make Earth a better place. For they were the Resistance, and they would never surrender.